What if wisdom is not words or knowledge or some kind of special ability? What if wisdom doesn't only belong to beautiful saints and sages? What if it belongs to you and me? What if it belongs to anyone, as long as we are willing and able to dig our wisdom well? The wisdom well metaphor has guided me through countless years and decades of struggle and suffering, and also brought me incredible joy and inspiration. It's a tool, it's a framework. And I spent literally most of my life searching for wisdom, because I know it sounds strange, but at the age of 13, I was thinking of not being here. I was very depressed. And I was inspired by a peaceful thought that asked me to choose a reason to live that was bigger than the pain of being alive. Choose something to make it worthwhile, and I chose wisdom. So wisdom has been a focus, a prize that I've spent a lifetime searching for. And I made all the mistakes, and they were good mistakes. They were mistakes I don't regret, because they all harvested something. But I made the typical mistakes that many of us make, thinking that wisdom was some thing like words or knowledge. And it took a long time to discover, to realize, and to have this realization flower and deepen within me, that wisdom is not words. In fact, the words of wisdom are just translations of wisdom, and that's why they can be weaponized. But that wisdom is clear or true seeing and being. Wisdom is true seeing and true being. That wisdom belongs to the knowing, not the knowledge. The knowledge is inside of us, and it's not to dismiss the value of knowledge, but wisdom happens when we are seeing with our true eyes as our true eye, which means that the pursuit of wisdom can also take us home to the self. We feel this intuitively, don't we? Because we can look at an infant and look into their eyes and we sense wisdom, but there's no knowledge there. There's not even words. We can hear echoes of wisdom coming through the words of even simple people, people without sophisticated education. We can feel or sense a lack of wisdom sometimes even from the most learned voices with a lot of knowledge, but somehow a lack of wisdom, because wisdom recognizes wisdom. It is the wisdom in you that is seeing and recognizing wisdom. Seeing is recognizing seeing, being is recognizing being. So we meet each other there. So one of the first surprises, or one of the surprises for me, was wisdom is not words. We take what clear, true seeing and being give, and then we translate that into words for the benefit of our own lives and perhaps even to share with others. But if somebody uses the words without the seeing and the being behind the words, those words, even from wisdom, can be weaponized. Does that make sense? You take the words, I love you, and compare I love you from open, true seeing and being, from a state of seeing as that love. And you compare that to the same words, I love you, but from a closed state where we aren't seeing, where we aren't being, but yet we use the words. So we could have the same words spoken from true seeing and being and spoken without true seeing and being. And the same exact words can be weaponized, can cause more separation, can land in us with harsh ripples of limitation, of ignorance, of even destruction. And we can take the same words, and when they're spoken from the seeing, backing up the words, they have power. They have transformative power. Just like water discovered in a well has the power to transform the dry, dead surface of a desert, to turn it into a living garden. Wisdom has that kind of transformative power. The moment we see clearly, we also reclaim our being, because being and seeing are one and the same. They're seeing and being. We see as our being, and our being is the seeing. The moment we rest attention and are able to see and be open, unclouded, unveiled, that seeing, that being, it has the power to transform the surface mind, the surface heart, the surface of our existential sense of self, the sensation in the body, the feelings in the body, and the thoughts. Sensation, feeling, thoughts. When we bring wisdom to the mind, to the heart, and to our body, our sense of self physically, wisdom can open all of them. Where closed is suffering, the closed mind is dense and in pain and in stress. The closed heart yearns and longs and aches. The closed gut is in a state of permanent resistance, at war with reality. So all of these, all the language of suffering, all the language of stress can be summarized as some form of closing, heaviness, tension. Would you agree? With all the language of everything we want, joy, peace, love, beauty, contentment, we will describe these things as a state of openness. So we yearn for openness. We struggle and suffer in closedness. And wisdom has the power to turn closed to open inside of our mind, heart, and gut. It has that kind of alchemical, transformative power. It has the power to turn that dead, dry surface into the garden of living an enlightened life in an ordinary way. So here are 4 steps or a framework that have helped me over all these decades to get more skilled at building my wisdom well and reliably accessing this true seeing and being. Whether I've been on a stage in front of many people talking with the presence of doubt and fear, working with that in order to still be able to serve and to speak, or whether I have been sitting quietly, meditating, self-coaching, working on shyness, working on transforming inner obstacles, or whether I'm teaching online, whether I'm parenting as a mom, in every area of my life, building a business as naturally and as wisdom-led business as I can, overcoming the struggles of what it means to be a human being. Wisdom that I dedicated my life to when I was 13 has become the single thing I am the most grateful for, because it has changed and continues to change everything. And just like we drink water every day and we use water in so many ways, that metaphor of wisdom I've found is the same. It's an ongoing thing. There's no arrival point, but there is the steady transformation, and one day we look and realize the desert has become a garden. And then we continue to water that garden. So these 4 steps, or this framework, is a guide to reliably building our wisdom well. In order to build our wisdom well, we must first, of course, dig our well. And what this means is being willing to put our hands in the dirt. We can't access wisdom without first being willing to get quite honest with ourselves. Once we start digging, then we need a bucket. And preferably we would like strong buckets. A bucket to send into the well. So it turns out that our questions are the buckets that we send into the well. Once we get past the surface and that bucket is lowered, the bucket needs to be open in order for wisdom to fill that bucket. And this perhaps is the part of the process that needs the most skill development, but even at its early stages can be very useful and beautiful, because this is where we have the opportunity to translate true seeing and true being into words that we can then bring back to the surface of our lives to use. But it's also an opportunity to test whether the water that we have received that has filled the bucket has got impurities in it. Because translating is fallible. Translating can be flawed. We mistranslate all the time. So it's important to stay discerning and to have a reliable way to test. Is this wisdom or ego? Is this imagination or is this true seeing? So we fill the bucket and then we bring it back to the surface to live, to empower, enlighten, and embody our lives, to turn the surface into a living garden, to live an enlightened life. And what those 4 steps, dig, ask, open, and live, can look like is journaling, meditation, coaching, self-coaching. It can be done in a compressed, quick 5 minutes. Dig my well, ask my question, open, translate, test, discover, and then embody, live. It can take 5 minutes. It can be what I call a seeing switch, where we're in a moment in our lives where we're feeling closed, and we just use this tool to switch from limited seeing to seeing with wisdom. And we can get better and better at doing that. Or we could put a time aside to actually sit and do inner work, to work on an inner obstacle, to gift ourselves with a mini retreat. Imagine, and I've given myself these many times, imagine carving out a day or a week of your life to just nurture yourself, to care for you, to focus on your inner work, and to build wisdom wells. So here's a tip or 2 for each of these steps. But if you subscribe to my channel and you follow me, you'll see that this work underpins everything that I have to offer. All of the teachings and tools that I bring to my Inner Life Skills coach certification community, to my clients, as well as to this channel. I have 2 channels, YouTube channels, Inner Life Skills and Colleen-Joy. So if this kind of work resonates with you, subscribe, and you will always find more of this work coming through to support you in building your wisdom well, perhaps for others as well. So dig, okay, cheesy 80s humor, like, do you dig it? Okay, no, Cole, don't do that. The tip for digging is that unfortunately, it's not easy to access wisdom by bypassing our human, raw and real. The worst thing we can do when digging our wisdom well is try to be spiritual, or try to be perfect, or try to be anything other than what we are really experiencing. So I call it being raw and real, because it doesn't mean exaggerating how you're feeling or creating pain if there isn't any. Wisdom wells can also be light and curious and interesting. But if you have a real experience inside of yourself, a shame, an anger, a fear, a doubt, procrastination, a pettiness, jealousy, you bring them to your wisdom well. And what that can look like very simply is spending a few minutes being honest. What I've often done is just journal this, a kind of purging, a writing down of how I really feel about something. Not for anyone else to read, definitely not, but to be honest with myself, to be a good friend to myself. And that does mean it can feel embarrassing, it can feel awkward, it can feel disappointing, it can feel like, oh, I thought I'd done so much work on this and now it's up again, and I thought I'd healed this, but it's still there. Or it can be, gosh, this is a really ugly side to me. This is a part of me I don't want to see. I don't want to be, but there it is. And I think what can really help as well, and perhaps the more wisdom we find and drink, the more we see this, is to not identify with the songs that rise in us. And stick with me, I know it sounds strange, but instead of I am angry, how about anger is in me? To think of anger as a song that is showing up in me. Can you feel the difference? The one is identified and locked in, and it will increase your closedness because it's not true. The other will give you space because you are the space in which that song arises, which means you can have a compassion for the parts of you that are not yet touched by wisdom, not yet seeing clearly, and the parts of you that are just struggling because it's hard being a human being. Yeah? So instead of I am my fear is in me. Instead of I am my anger is in me. Instead of I am my shame is in me. It's a song coming to me. So when we dig our well and we purge and we get real with ourselves and we're like, gosh, there is that thing, oh my word, there's this thought, that dark thought, or that painful feeling, or that ugly thing that we don't want to look at. Think of it as a song in you, or think of it as a part of you that you can be a good friend to. And that does mean first listening to it, looking at it, listening to it, maybe opening with some love. Look, listen, love. That part of you. And so we dig our well by spending a bit of time bringing that closer. And sure, if that is too much and you want somebody to hold a space for that, seek trusted professional help. But in the intimacy of our own life experience, there's a lot to be said for being a good friend to ourselves. The point here is that we cannot skip the rocks and the dirt to get to the wisdom. And I can also say this shows us if there is a gift in suffering, it can be that it brings us to our wisdom well. I know I would never have pursued this if it hadn't been for suffering. So suffering brings us to our knees. It in a way starts to open us potentially. And if there is the smallest opportunity to give ourselves the gift of transforming our suffering into wisdom, then that is a great gift, don't you think? And after spending sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 2 moments digging, other times 15 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on if you're doing the mini quick version of this or the deep dive version of your wisdom well. Now it's time to make a bucket. So the questions we ask also determine the quests we go on. The word question has the word quest in it. And there's a whole lot of understanding that I've come to realize over many years of working with this. The key here is that it's all about attention, you see. Attention determines what we are tuned into intuitively. And the question is a way of guiding attention. So if I want to tune into fear, I ask a question about my fear and I've tuned into fear. What most of us do without realizing it is that we keep attention on the surface of our wisdom well. And therefore, we fill our buckets with sand and keep wondering why we're not finding insight, clear seeing, relief from our contracted, closed feelings. A lot of it has got to do with the fact that we don't realize we can change what we're tuned into by changing what attention is on. But in order to do that, we have to pay attention to attention. And you'll notice in moments that attention is a moving thing. Attention is usually hijacked by the loudest dominant thing, the loudest feeling in our body, the most demanding thought, the loudest sound in our environment, the brightest light, the noisiest, most alarming piece of news when we doom scroll on a channel, It's the shocking, it's the controversial, it's the dangerous, and unfortunately, if you think about it, it's that clickbait, demanding, news grabbing, attention hijacking thing that is consuming us 24 hours a day sometimes, locking attention on to the war, the pain and the struggle of the surface of our lives. Because whatever our attention is on, that's what we are tuned into. This determines the songs playing through our nervous system, which is the experience of what it is to be alive. So we can help ourselves change what attention is on by asking a really good question. Our questions can help us to send that bucket lower, deeper. We want strong buckets. We don't want leaky buckets. We don't want little thimble-size buckets. So, for example, a closed question is a tiny little bucket. A yes-no question. Should I? Will I? How many times have we asked our intuition a should question? A will I? Can I? And perhaps I should make a whole video just on that because it's so important. It's just something I noticed, that whenever I was asking wisdom or intuition a closed question, I produced very little. And then one day it occurred to me that the question itself was flawed. The question itself lacked wisdom. It was a weak bucket. Whereas when we ask open questions, we give ourselves an opportunity to discover so much more. So my favorite 3 questions are: what is the deeper truth? How does wisdom see this? And what do I need to know? So I focus on the topic, whatever I'm building my wisdom well for: relationships, career, an inner obstacle, a spiritual question, an inquiry, something I want to see for myself. And I will usually use one or more of those 3 questions somewhere in this mix, because I know that if I do that, it's going to help send my bucket lower, because attention is guided by intention, and intention is a silent decision we make. It's like a yes on the deep inside of who we are that says, I want something. It's sincerity, which is why it's hard to build a wisdom well on casual curiosity. Sincere curiosity is fine, but casual, whimsical, well, maybe not. Which is why pain helps sometimes, because pain, we get very sincere very quickly. We get very real very, very quickly. Of course, you don't need pain to build your wisdom well, but you get what I'm saying. So ask a question and then open. And there are 3 parts to this stage, because this is where the bucket has now gone deeper than the surface. Now the transition is from, let's say, the surface of us, where the pain is. The part of us is asking the question, doesn't have the answer. Now we are opening. And for me, this comes down to tuning in, translating, and then testing. And that doesn't mean you have to follow this in a mechanical, rigid way. These are just helpful pointers, right? This is just me giving you what I've learned from many decades. But I don't want you to feel like this is a to-do list, because it's not. These are guides. These are pointers. So tuning in is setting your intention to put attention deeper inside of yourself. And the movement is from close to open. So when we set an intention to tune into how wisdom sees, you'll find that there's an opening that happens. Even if there's still tension and fluttering, there can be a mix. It is a continuum. It's not a either or. So you won't go from completely closed to completely open, but from closed to open, there you'll find that as you meditate, as you tune in, as you coach yourself, as you journal, with your intention to send attention to wisdom, there is some movement from closed to more open. And the moment you feel more open, more relief, more of a sense of peace in your body, that's how you know the bucket is touching the water. That's actually the way we test. The way I test for wisdom. Wisdom opens us. And more wisdom opens us more. Yeah? The trick is the translating. And I think I should make some more tutorials on translating. Because what happens is we are very good at translating the surface. We're good at translating ego. We're good at translating fear into words. Our normal day-to-day chattering thoughts in our mind is the translation of the surface. That's where attention usually is locked. So we're really good at translating from our personality, from the surface mind, from the surface heart. We're very good at that. It's chatter, chatter, chatter. When we drop the bucket into wisdom, what happens is that it gets quieter. It doesn't go completely quiet. So don't try to force the mind to be quiet. That's pointless. Leave it chattering away, but become interested in the slowing down, more spacious silence that for the mind feels like relief. It feels like understanding. For the heart, it feels like love and wholeness. And I mean, these words are tricky, right? Because even the mind can experience love. So these centers of intelligence each respond slightly differently and can be translated into different words as they touch wisdom. The gut, it's a kind of surrender and acceptance. The heart, it's more whole and full, and the mind feels like a relief. But we could use the same words in each center. It really, semantics really. Point is, as that bucket touches wisdom, they open. And we may notice mind more than heart, or gut more than heart, or any of them, because we tend to have our personalities determine where there is a center of gravity. The Enneagram is actually a useful tool to understand which of these three senses tends to dominate. And I say tends to because we all have all three, but it's the way we're usually translating life and knowledge is through these centers. And what we're doing now is sending the bucket deeper than the surface. And so the mind, the heart, and the gut will experience some kind of relief, a little bit more comfort. And that's our clue. Now, if you're not used to this and you don't know what's going on, you may think there's nothing. I've heard from so many clients, Cole, I'm trying to access wisdom, but there's nothing. And then I always ask them, what kind of nothing? Is it a closed nothing? Is it like a tight nothing? Or is it a nothing? Because then that nothing's not nothing. It's something. Because a tight nothing means you're bumping into something inside of you that's worthy of some looking and listening. It's part of the obstacles. It's part of the rocks. This kind of nothing is something. It means the bucket's touching the wisdom. So we can translate. Translating, it's helpful when we're translating to start with how noticing the more open, noticing the relief. And then there are many techniques that I've developed over the years, that I've discovered over the years through other modalities, through other teachers and teachings, that are about turning this open seeing into words. And it's a little bit of a leap. Sometimes we need to almost leap into words, not force. It's like, if this openness could talk, what could it be? But the thing is, wisdom doesn't grab the microphone. Ego, fear, this surface, separate self, false self, grabs the microphone. It's dominant. It's grabbing attention. We have to give the microphone to wisdom. Our survival programming is grabbing the microphone. Our biological imperative to survive and kill or be killed, and that grabs the microphone. Wisdom is a choice. Wisdom is, do I want to live my life driven by the survival programming of my body, or do I want to hand the microphone to deeper wisdom? And then it's tricky, because now the truth is, wisdom is without words. And yet it is perfectly valid and helpful and meaningful to translate wisdom into words. So we can do that by discovering words, imagining, if this openness could speak, what might it say? And we start to write down words, knowing full well that it's not the words, but the seeing behind the words that matters. So if it feels clunky and difficult and not poetic and beautiful, that's okay. If the words come as symbols and as metaphors, that's okay. I remember once tuning in and getting annoyed that there was a song in my head. And I was like, no, I want wisdom. I don't want to think of a song. Until I realized maybe the song is the translation of wisdom. And I paid attention to the lyrics, and guess what? The lyrics were really helpful. The lyrics of that song were really helpful. And I thought, oh, that's how my humanity, that's how my mind is translating this wisdom right now, as a song. Other times there's been stories, fables that have emerged. Other times it's been bullet point practical. Other times tools and frameworks and diagrams. Other times poetic dialogue and inner dialogue. You don't know yet, and it's okay. But always know that something's always lost in translation. That's okay. So we don't want to take it literally. We don't want to weaponize our words. If the seeing is opening you, it is worth paying attention to. And that's how we test wisdom. Is this opening my mind, my heart? Is it bringing me to wholeness and not keeping me in my holes and my sense of lack? Is it bringing the inner sense of self into a state of equal to my life's challenges, equal to other beings, not plus or minus, not I am greater than superior or I am less than inferior. Open, whole, equal. That's how I know I'm discovering wisdom. And sometimes it becomes words, and sometimes it remains as seeing. Now, you could spend 5 minutes in this downloading, translating of wisdom. You could spend just a few minutes here, or you could spend half an hour, an hour. I think the longest wisdom well I've done has been about 3 to 4 hours. And it doesn't mean you have to do that. It just means that this can be a long, deep process, or it could be a short, beautiful. It can be a little sip of water, or it could be transforming a whole garden, putting in an irrigation system. Okay. And now it's time to be courageous. Now it's time to live what you find. Now it's time to teach your body this way of seeing and being, to realize that the inner student and the inner teacher have an opportunity to meet each other, that the words can be felt and embodied, that the understanding can be lived, and this can take courage. It can take courage to take what we discover and what we see and to bring it into our relationships, into our various roles, into the struggles of what it means to be a human being. Because seeing and being and wisdom belong in our lives. Wisdom belongs. Wisdom is not just philosophy for my bookshelf. Wisdom belongs in our hospital wards, in our boardrooms, in our homes, in our kitchens, in our mind, our heart, and our gut. And that way it transforms what it feels like to be alive. So I hope that this inspires you, maybe challenges you to give yourself the gift of building your wisdom well.